There is a voice inside your head that never seems to rest. It speaks when you wake up. It continues as you drink your coffee. It keeps talking as you walk, work, eat, and even when you lie in bed at night. This voice is not your enemy, but it is also not always your friend. It says many things, some useful, some painful, and many that simply fill the space. It remembers old conversations, worries about the future, compares you to others, and sometimes repeats the same thought again and again. It may sound like your own voice, but it acts more like an echo that has forgotten how to fade away. We all have this voice. It is part of being human, but many people never stop to ask, why does it talk so much? And more importantly, must I always listen? The mind believes it must always be busy. It thinks in words, images, and ideas. It wants to solve problems, understand the world, and prepare for every possible future. This is not wrong. But when this activity never stops, it becomes noise. And when we become lost in that noise, we suffer. This inner noise often hides the gentle stillness that lives underneath. Imagine a clear pond. When the surface is still, you can see to the bottom. But when the wind stirs the water, everything becomes cloudy. The thoughts are like that wind. They move and stir until we forget the stillness that was always there. To quiet the mind, we must first understand it. Not to fight it or shut it down, but to see it clearly. When we understand that the mind creates this noise because it is trying to protect us, we can begin to feel more compassion toward it. And from that gentle understanding, the noise begins to lose its power. The goal is not to force silence, but to stop feeding the noise, to notice it without getting caught in it. This is the first step on a very simple but deep journey, learning to rest in the quiet place that has been with you all along. You may have noticed that even when nothing is happening around you, your mind is still busy. It jumps from one thought to another, like a monkey swinging from branch to branch. Sometimes it's about what happened yesterday. Sometimes it's about what might go wrong tomorrow. And sometimes it's not about anything important at all. It just doesn't want to be quiet. The mind avoids silence because silence feels unfamiliar. From childhood, we are taught to do, to think, to plan, to explain. We are praised for solving problems, for speaking our minds, for being clever. But we are rarely taught how to simply be, without needing to think or say anything. As a result, the mind becomes uncomfortable when there is nothing to do. Silence is not natural for the thinking mind. It feels like a space with no walls, no control, no direction, and that can feel frightening. The mind believes that if it stops thinking, something will go wrong. It believes it must always be on guard. This belief is strong, even if we are not aware of it. So the mind keeps talking, even when it has nothing new to say. Sometimes the mind fills silence with stories. It makes up problems to solve. It remembers small mistakes and turns them into big ones. It imagines how people see us, what they think, and whether we are enough. These stories are not always true, but the mind repeats them because it is more comfortable with noise than with stillness. It's important to understand that this is not a failure. It is simply the way the mind has been trained to work. If we try to force it to be silent, it will often resist. But if we understand why it resists, we can begin to soften that habit. The mind rarely stays silent, not because silence is bad, but because silence is unfamiliar. The more time we spend gently allowing quiet to exist, even for a few seconds, the more natural it will begin to feel. Silence is not something to achieve. It is something to remember. When we stop judging the noise and start understanding it, we take one step closer to peace. Thinking is not a problem by itself. It helps us understand, plan, and learn. But when thinking becomes constant, it turns into a kind of weight we carry without noticing. Many people feel tired, even when they haven't done much physically. This is often because their mind has been working without rest, thinking about everything all the time. The mind tells us we must keep thinking in order to stay safe. It warns us of dangers, even small ones. It asks us to review conversations, prepare for imaginary situations, or replay past events again and again. This never-ending cycle becomes heavy. It drains our energy, affects our sleep, and makes it hard to enjoy the moment we are in. Some people say, "I just can't turn it off." That is true. It's not like a switch. But we can begin to see how much we carry. We can notice how often we are thinking, not to solve something, but simply out of habit. This kind of thinking does not bring clarity. It brings exhaustion. Imagine carrying a heavy bag everywhere you go. You've carried it for so long that you forget it's even there. One day someone says, "You can put it down." At first you might feel strange without it, but then you feel lighter, freer. This is what it feels like when we begin to loosen the grip of constant thought. We don't need to get rid of all thinking. That would be impossible. But we do need to see when it becomes too much. We need to recognize when the mind is just spinning without purpose. And we need to give ourselves permission to pause, even for a few breaths, even for a few seconds. When we do this, we create space. Space to feel, to rest, to simply be. This space is not empty. It is full of presence. And from this presence, real peace can arise. Not because we forced the mind to stop, but because we stopped following it everywhere. Constant thought is a burden we don't always have to carry. The moment we realize that, something inside us begins to let go. Much of the suffering we feel in daily life does not come from what is actually happening. It comes from what we think about what is happening. The event itself may be small, like someone speaking to us with a sharp tone, or forgetting to reply to a message. But the thoughts that follow can turn it into something much bigger. We begin to wonder, did I do something wrong? Do they not respect me? Am I not important to them? These thoughts grow quickly. One leads to another. Soon, we are not dealing with the original moment anymore. We are trapped in a storm of meaning we created in our mind. This happens often. A single moment becomes the seed for a whole story. And the story feels real, because we hear it in our own voice. We believe it, without even noticing. But if we look closely, we can see. The pain is not only from what happened, it is also from what we told ourselves about it. This is how thoughts shape suffering. They add layers to reality. They take a small pain and make it last much longer. They carry it into the past and the future. They replay it, analyze it, and judge it. But here is something simple and powerful. Thoughts are not facts. They are just thoughts. They come and go. Some are helpful, but many are just habits. When we believe every thought, we lose our balance. But when we notice a thought and say, "Ah, there you are," without following it, the space between us and the thought grows. This space matters. In that space, we can breathe. We can choose how to respond. We can see the difference between what is real and what is just noise. Suffering often begins in the mind, and it often stays there. But when we begin to see how our thoughts shape that suffering, we also begin to see a way out. Not by fixing every thought, but by seeing them for what they are, just passing clouds in a wide and open sky. That sky has always been there. We've only been staring at the clouds. Sometimes we believe we need to do something big to change our inner experience. We search for techniques, methods, or special teachings. But often, the most powerful shift begins with something very small, simply noticing. When we notice what is happening inside us without trying to change it, we begin to wake up. This is not a trick or a special skill. It is just the act of becoming aware. You may notice a thought repeating itself. You may notice your shoulders are tense. You may notice a feeling of worry or a sense of pressure in your chest. In that moment of noticing, something important happens. You are no longer lost in the experience. You are seeing it from a little distance. This distance is gentle. It is not cold or disconnected. In fact, it can be warm and soft. You are not pushing anything away. You are simply recognizing it. Ah, here is that thought again. Or, there is a tightness in my stomach. You are not trying to fix it or fight it. You are just seeing it clearly as it is. This simple act of noticing breaks the cycle of automatic reaction. Most of the time, we don't notice. We just react. A thought appears, and we follow it. A feeling arises, and we believe the story it tells. But when we pause and notice, even for a second, we interrupt that pattern. And in that interruption, we find a small but deep freedom. You might think, that's too simple. Just noticing can't be enough. But the truth is, the mind calms down when it is seen with kindness. It doesn't need to be controlled. It needs to be met with understanding. Try it now. Whatever is in your mind, just notice it. Don't judge it. Don't chase it away. Just say, this is what's here right now. That's all. And notice what changes, even slightly, when you do that. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who notices them. And the more often you remember this, the less power those thoughts will have. In a world that tells us to always do more, noticing may seem small. But in the quiet space of noticing, transformation begins. Not with effort, but with presence. Most people live as if every thought in their mind is true. A thought appears, and they follow it. It tells them who they are, what they should fear, what they must do next. Without realizing it, they become tightly wrapped in those thoughts, like a thread around a finger that keeps pulling tighter. But what if you are not your thoughts? What if thoughts are simply something that pass through, like clouds in the sky or cars on a road? When you begin to ask this, something begins to shift. You start to notice that between you and your thoughts, there is space. This space is not something you have to create. It already exists. You only need to become aware of it. The moment you realize, I'm thinking, instead of being completely inside the thought, you've already made a little distance. That distance may feel small at first, but it is powerful. It is the beginning of freedom. When there is space, you can choose. You can hear a thought say, you're not good enough, and instead of believing it, you can pause. You can notice that it's just a sentence passing through your mind. It's not a truth written in stone. It's just a thought, one of many. You can watch it come, and you can watch it go. Some thoughts may come with strong emotion. That's okay. You don't need to fight them. Just allow them to pass through the space, like wind passing through an open room. The more space you allow, the less control those thoughts have over you. This space is not emptiness. It is full of calm. It is full of quiet. And the more familiar you become with it, the more natural it feels to rest there. Thoughts will still come. That's normal, but they won't carry you away so easily. You don't have to push thoughts away. You don't have to replace them with better ones. Just let them come, let them go, and remain in the space between. That is where you find yourself, not in the noise, but in the stillness that watches the noise. And when you touch that stillness, even for a moment, you remember, you were never the storm. You were always the sky. Many people feel uneasy when things become quiet. In silence, there are no distractions, no background noise to fill the space. And for some, that feels uncomfortable, like standing alone in a room with nothing to do. The mind immediately starts searching for something to fill the silence. A memory, a plan, a worry, anything. But silence is not empty. It is not something missing. It is something alive, something deep. Underneath all the thoughts and noise, there is a quiet place inside you. It has always been there. You may have forgotten it, but it has never left you. The challenge is not finding this silence. The challenge is trusting it. Trusting that it is safe to rest there. Trusting that you don't need to be thinking every second to be okay. The mind may resist. It may say, "This is boring," or "You should be doing something." But if you stay a little longer, something shifts. You begin to notice a gentle peace in the silence. Not the kind of peace that comes from everything going right, but the kind that doesn't depend on anything at all. It just is. And it holds you, quietly, without needing you to do or fix or prove anything. This silence is not weakness. It is strength. It doesn't shout or demand attention. But it remains steady, even when your thoughts are loud or your emotions are strong. The more time you spend with it, the more you realize it is trustworthy. You can rest there. You can breathe there. You can let go, even just a little, and the world doesn't fall apart. In fact, the more you rest in this silence, the clearer things become. You see your thoughts more clearly. You see your reactions more gently. And you realize that you don't have to live in constant motion. There is nothing you need to do to earn this silence. It is not a reward. It is your natural state, underneath the layers of thinking and doing. It waits for you, always. And when you trust it, even just for a moment, you remember something simple and true. Peace is not something you chase. It's something you return to. When the mind is noisy or restless, our first instinct is often to control it. We think, "I have to stop these thoughts," or "I need to quiet my mind right now." But the more we try to force silence, the louder the mind becomes. It resists pressure. It pushes back when we push it. And we end up in a struggle with ourselves. But there is another way, a softer way. Instead of trying to control the mind, we can bring gentle awareness to it. This does not mean we let the mind do whatever it wants without care. It means we meet it with kindness instead of force. Gentle awareness is like holding a small bird in your hands. If you grip it too tightly, you will harm it. If you open your hands too wide, it may fly away. But if you hold it gently, it rests. In the same way, the mind rests more easily in a soft space than in a hard one. You can begin by simply noticing what the mind is doing, without judgment. Is it rushing? Is it planning? Is it remembering? Just see it. There is no need to stop it. The act of seeing clearly is often enough. When the mind feels seen, not controlled, it begins to calm down on its own. This does not happen overnight. It's like learning to listen to someone with patience instead of interrupting them. Over time, the mind learns that it doesn't have to shout to be heard. It doesn't have to keep running to feel safe. It begins to settle, not because we made it settle, but because we made space for it to do so. Control comes from fear. Awareness comes from care. And when we approach the mind with care, we stop being its enemy. We become its companion. That small change in attitude makes a big difference. You don't need to fight the noise. You don't need to silence every thought. Just be with what is happening, gently. Like sitting beside a friend who is upset, not trying to fix them, just offering presence. That presence alone is healing. And in that gentle awareness, you'll find that the mind begins to breathe. Not because you forced it, but because you finally allowed it. Many people treat inner silence as a goal, something to reach after enough practice, after enough effort. They sit quietly and wait for their thoughts to disappear. And when the mind keeps talking, they feel like they have failed. But silence is not a prize for doing everything right. It is not the end of the path. It is the path. If we chase silence like a destination, it stays far away. We become tense, waiting for the moment when everything becomes still. But silence does not come to those who demand it. It comes to those who learn to walk with it, slowly and gently, like walking beside a stream. Silence is already with you, even in the middle of noise. It is not the absence of sound or thought. It is the quiet space that surrounds them, like the pause between words or the stillness behind your breath. It is always present, if you are willing to notice it. You do not need to wait until your mind is perfect to touch silence. In fact, silence often appears in the small spaces between noisy thoughts. You might hear it when you exhale. You might feel it in the pause before a new thought begins. These moments are small, but they are real, and they matter. Treating silence as a goal makes it something distant, something outside of you. But walking with silence as a path makes it part of your daily life. You begin to find it in simple things, in washing a cup, in watching the sky, in just sitting for a moment, without needing to be anywhere else. This kind of silence doesn't need effort. It needs attention. It asks only that you stop trying so hard, that you open to what is already here. And as you walk this path, you begin to see. Silence is not something you make. It is something you return to. Each step on this path is enough. You don't have to rush. You don't have to fix anything. Just take one quiet step and then another. The path itself becomes the peace you were looking for all along. What happens when we stop chasing silence and begin to live from it? Life does not become perfect. The world outside still moves. People still speak with harsh words. Mistakes still happen. But something inside begins to change. We are no longer pulled in every direction by the mind's noise. We begin to live from a quieter place. This quiet place is not something we visit only during special moments. It can become the ground we walk on every day. Not dramatic, not loud, but steady. It supports us through busy days, difficult emotions, and unexpected turns. We no longer react to everything right away. We begin to respond with care and clarity. From this quieter place, we listen more deeply, not just to others, but to life itself. We notice the small things we used to miss, the way sunlight touches the floor, the feeling of water on our hands, the silence between two people sitting together. These moments were always there. Now we are present enough to receive them. Living from a quieter place doesn't mean we stop thinking. It means we stop being controlled by our thoughts. A thought may come, and we see it. But we are not caught in it. We are free to choose. We begin to move with more ease, because we are not always tangled in inner noise. This quiet also makes room for kindness. When we are not lost in our own mind, we can see others more clearly. We are less quick to judge, less quick to speak from fear. There is a softness in us, and that softness can hold both our own pain and the pain of others without breaking. Some people may ask, how do I hold on to this peace? But the quieter place is not something to hold. It is something to return to, again and again. When you get lost in thought, and you will, you simply come back. That act of returning is the path, and each time you return, the silence welcomes you, like an old friend. In this way, quiet becomes not something you practice, but something you are, not separate from your life, but woven through it. And that changes everything, not in loud ways, but in real ones. If you've come this far, you have already begun to touch something rare and quiet inside yourself. Not something new, but something long forgotten. A stillness that doesn't ask for anything. A space that welcomes you, just as you are. This quiet place is not far away. It is not waiting in the future. It is already here, behind each breath, beneath each moment of stillness. You don't need to force your way into it. You only need to pause and remember. And when you forget again, as we all do, you can simply begin again. Let the mind be as it is. Let the thoughts come and go. Let the noise rise and fall. But somewhere beneath all of it, stay close to the quiet that knows how to wait. There is no finish line to reach. There is only this moment, and this one, and this one. That is enough. If these words have spoken to something inside you, I am deeply grateful that we could share this space together. I understand how noisy the world can be. I know how easy it is to feel lost inside the endless chatter. And I also know that even one quiet moment can change everything. To those who have offered kind support through likes, subscriptions, thoughtful comments, or super thanks, I sincerely thank you. Your presence and encouragement make it possible for these gentle messages to continue reaching others who may need them. May this quiet stay with you, not as a memory of something you heard, but as something you carry within, something you can return to whenever the world feels too loud. And if one day you find yourself feeling overwhelmed again, unsure where to turn, I hope you'll remember, silence has not left you. It is only waiting, patiently, for you to return.